Mario Party. Everyone knows Mario Party. You get coins to buy stars, and whoever has the most stars by the end wins. Very simple concept. It's a very constant series too. During the 2000s, these things were being released like yearly. It was Nintendo's Call of Duty. Careful, soldier. If you get bombed, you'll lose 10 coins. Hudson Soft was the developer for the longest time, making 10 Mario Party games total. 1 through 8, as well as Mario Party Advanced and Mario Party DS. The latter being their final Mario Party game before being taken out back and shot by Konami. After that, ND Cube was formed, which they actually got their names changed recently to Nintendo Cube. And once they took over the series, it kind of went through what I can only really describe as a midlife crisis. Mario Party 9 completely changed up the structure. No longer are you moving separately, you're all now confined in a car, moving together. Minigames don't happen every turn now. You collect mini stars instead. To say that people did not like this change would be an accurate description to how people felt. I have to wonder why the Mario Party formula shifted up so much. There were interviews, the biggest explanation they give is they want each turn for the players to be more involved. So even if it's not your turn, you'd have to always be paying attention since your position is constantly changing. I think it's possible that another reason for this change was that after ND Cube took over, they wanted to make Mario Party have their own identity. Yes, I know ND Cube is filled with developers from the original development team, but it's more about the principle of the matter. New company, it's time for a new identity. Unfortunately, that identity would look like something you'd find in a mugshot. So after many years of all of this, the Switch comes along with a new Mario Party game. And for the first time in a while, they go back to the traditional formula. And by a while, I mean over a decade. Mario Party DS came out in 2007, with Super Mario Party coming out in 2018. So quite a long time. In this game, it's back to how it was. You take a turn, get coins, play minigame, and try to buy more stars than everyone else. Huzzah! Kinda. It was definitely formatted more like a traditional Mario Party game, but there was still a lot about it that made it very different. At this point, it feels like Super Mario Party has become the forgotten Mario Party game. I mean, how could it not? It only sold 20 million units. I thought it would be kind of fun to go back to this one and see what it did and how it tried to do stuff differently and how well it might have been executed or not. Before we talk about the boards or minigames or side modes or any of that boring shit, I want to talk about the main hub of this game. In this game, you can walk around to choose where you want to go and talk to characters and the like. I really like the outdoor party aesthetic they went with here. It's like Mario in the game went out to a nice empty field and just set up this little shindig for everyone. Well, admittedly a pretty expensive shindig. They got flat screens everywhere and podiums, underground rooms, you know, for when the nukes get launched. But I guess relative to the rest of the series, it's more low-key. Like there's no large carnival or cruise ship or anything like that. It makes it feel kind of personal to Mario Cast this time around. Like yeah, the intro sets it up as like the heroes versus the villains, but it doesn't really feel like it's taken that seriously. Like here, when standing near the back of the hub, you can see Bowser and Junior talking with one another, and after some time, they'll turn and wave at you. It all has a very nice laid-back feel to it that I really dig. I really enjoy the sunset setting they gave it too. I'm always a sucker for a sunset. It really gives this game a sense of something that you wind down with. Like after a hard day's work, you can settle down and relax a bit by playing this game with the family before you start killing each other. But you know, if you don't care about any of that because you're a joyless prude, you can just pick whatever you want from the pause menu, which is a nice option to have. So we select the party mode, and now I want to move on to the presentation of the boards themselves and talk about the approach they took with designing these and how they're all set up. What approach was that?
Wow, they have it square.
Yeah, this game decided to go with a grid-based layout for its boards. We'll get into the reasoning why later, but in terms of visual design, I don't really like it very much. It kind of makes these areas and locations feel very fake, like Thwomp's Ruins. I'll be honest, aside from this one area in the upper section here, where you step on a happening space and a giant stone comes to crush you, I don't really feel like we're in the ruins at all. Like, yeah, sure, we're in the jungle and on stone, but that's about as far as they go in terms of actually getting this place to feel like a ruin. When I think of ruins, I think of a large abandoned stone structures to explore, and this doesn't really invoke that same feeling. I think the Kamek map runs into a similar issue. In fact, I think it's worse there. I know it's supposed to be a tower because the board is called Kamek's Tantalizing Tower, but there's really nothing here that evokes that feeling at all. Mostly because you can't actually see the sky because of these large buildings blocking your view. In fact, I didn't realize that this was supposed to be some kind of town. I didn't know that until I looked it up on the Mario Wiki. So you don't really feel like you're high up on the tower since you can't really see past these buildings, and you really don't get the sense that you're in a town because all the buildings are off to the side. The biggest thing to focus on is just the empty floor. The biggest impression that this map left on me was the fact that it was really yellow.
Man, that building is yellow.
It's this large and grand scope of an idea with a board design that's small and limiting, so it doesn't really invoke the feeling the developers were probably going for. I think the other two maps are a little better when it comes to this. Mega Fruit Paradise keeps it a little more basic with its concept. You're on a beach traveling on massive fruit, and the fruit look really damn good too. It really sells the fact that Bowser's getting his nasty ass feet all over it, and since it's a beachside, all the background really needs to be is this vast ocean to sell it. King Bob-omb's Power Keg mine also works better since, it's the mines. You're already in a more enclosed, smaller environment. It makes it easier to buy that it would be set up so squarely like this. And since you're underground, you're always met with massive rocks and walls in the background to really remind you where you are. All in all, if they wanted to do this whole smaller grid-based style for its boards, they should have gone with themes and environments that better fit it. Like, I don't know, maybe inside of an outdoor ruins, it's, a museum of some kind. You got the background simply be filled with art exhibits and statues and whatnot. It would work. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the actual gameplay of these boards. There's two separate ones, the party mode and the partner mode. Let's go over the regular party mode first, since it is the main attraction. It's the one right directly in the center. When I played this game all the way back when it first came out, the first thing that immediately caught my attention was how everything was weirdly cheap in this game. Rather than stars costing 20 coins, they only cost 10 here. The Lakitu, which has an option to steal a star, only costs 30 coins. A golden pipe, an item that literally takes you directly in front of the star, 10 coins. Everything is cheap as hell. I wish our economy was like that. Nowadays, when I go down to buy a burger, it costs me a whole 7 coins. What the fuck? You'd think that it might be like this because getting coins is more difficult now to compensate, but no, like blue spaces still give you 3 coins. In any other Mario Party game, that's just a small bonus. Something that can help you out, but not too much. But in this game, that's like almost 1/3 of the coins you need to buy a whole star. That's a big deal. Minigames also give you 8 coins when you win them, only 2 coins less than previous Mario Party games. And starting with this game, 2nd place and 3rd place gets coins too. And it's not a small amount either, it's 4 coins and 2 coins respectively. Basically, you'll never find yourself in a situation where you can't buy a star, unless you're like completely dog shit at this game. This does mean that this game has a horribly broken economy. You never have to worry about running out of coins. But here's the thing. I think the developers were actually aware of this, since, believe it or not, I don't think the game's balance is broken with the outrageous economy. It's broken in other ways, but we'll get to that. You see, in this game, shops work a little bit differently. Rather than having multiple shops that roughly have the same selection of items that get updated occasionally, this game has it where there's 2 shops always carrying a specific set of items. One with standard items like a mushroom, a cursed room, and so on, and another one with the good shit like golden pipes and custom blocks. The thing is, the shops containing the really good stuff are really far out of the way, or have a condition attached to it. And these maps are all pretty linear, so there's really not much you can do to take a quick shortcut to get to it. Like take the Flutter Shop on the Womp map real quick. The golden pipe here is actually pretty difficult to get to through normal means. You start down here in the bottom right and you must make your way upwards to the top. There's a fork in the road here where if you go left, you'll take a small circular route and wind up back at the beginning without passing the golden pipe shop. So if you go up, you have to make your way through this top section here, where if you land on a happening space, a boulder will come down and you have to run from it. Just like in the movie UHF. This pushes you back and you gotta try getting through it again. And once you get through it, you'll be able to head down to the left side here, where you'll finally be able to get to the shop and buy a golden pipe. It's quite the journey. There's also a couple of forks in the road. They're not much. They just send you down a parallel path for 4 to 5 spaces until linking up back to the main path again. It seems like there's really no reason to go down these paths at all. Like, why would you take this right path here when you could just go to the Lakitu and steal some coins or even a star? Well, these spots have star spaces where Toadette will land, so many times you had to make a choice. Go to the Lakitu to steal a star or just buy a star. It's the same thing with the golden pipe shop. The star can appear on the upper path on the fork in the road, and you have to decide whether you want to make your way to the star or just go for the golden pipe. If you pass up the pipe, then you have to make the entire round trip back there again. There's nothing here like the Mr. Eye on Horrorland where it takes you across the map. You gotta walk all the way back. Good time to get that cardio in. Unlike previous Mario Party games where it's about trying to get coins to be able to purchase these expensive items to help you attain stars, here it's about even being able to reach them in the first place. I mentioned the fork near the beginning. Well, not only is that another spot that the star can be, but it's also where the other shop is. So that's another decision. Do you want to take a detour that'll make it longer to get to the Lakitu or the pipe, or do you go itemless and just hope you get good rolls and perhaps land on an item space by chance? The other maps have their own ways of handling player movements, making it more difficult to get the things that they want. On the Tropical Fruit map, the only way to make it to the upper section is by landing on these happening spaces, which is mostly up to chance. The Golden Pipe shop also works differently on this map. Here, every time you buy an item, the ice cream behind the flutter melts. After 3 purchases, there will be a chance that the ice cream will fall, and when it does, the shop is gone for the rest of the game. The Bomb-On map is the same idea as the Womp map. The Golden Pipe shop is very out of the way, and in Chemic's map, there is no Golden Pipe since the star is stationary and never moves. Now, there is one flaw with all of this, and that is, since the Golden Pipe takes you right in front of the star, if the star is in a spot that's not too far from the Golden Pipe, you can just easily loop and get another one. But that's fine. The game has a plan for this. You see there's a Womp here, and it can actually block the path to the star pipe, meaning that if you want to get past them, you'll need to fork over a staggering 3 coins. Hey, wait a second. Yeah, this is the part where the bad economy really does kind of become a problem. I know I said that coins don't matter as much due to the focus shifting more on movement, and I still think that's mostly true, but there are elements like this that it really feels like they needed to be more expensive. Having a Womp here really could fix the issue of getting multiple Golden Pipes, but due to the utter ridiculous cheapness of it, it's completely ineffective. Like, why is he even here at all if you just have to pay the same amount as a blue space? They could have done something interesting with it, like maybe have it where you can choose the amount you want to pay, and then the person behind you has to pay more as it gradually increases. In fact, they already do that on Kamek's board, and it works there, so why not apply it here? I find it interesting that sometimes the developers find solutions to a problem and then execute it in the most terrible way possible. Like, let's go back to Kamek's map. I just brought that up. Why don't we talk about it? There's a gimmick where you can buy multiple stars, and it goes up to 15 coins, so it can actually get quite expensive. They have multiple roadblocks that make it more difficult to hold on to the coin. An item that other people can use to steal your coins. There's a shop that when you pass it, you're forced to buy something, and the items there are actually increased in price compared to the regular item shop. The Thwomp that I mentioned, that's all great, but then they make it where blue spaces give you 6 coins when you land on them, and then 10 in the final 3 turns. That's even more than a minigame. And speaking of minigames, the overly easy way to get coins in this game make them feel pretty pointless. The whole point of minigames was to get coins so you'd have more options on the board. Back in the day, getting 10 coins was a big deal, even during late game. They could really change the tide. But now once you get past turn like 5, people have so many coins that getting an additional 8 really doesn't make a difference. I think part of the reason why they did this was because if you were someone who was simply not good at these minigames, it'd be very difficult for you to come out on top, since you would just have less options by default. So they made them intentionally less impactful by allowing players to have other ways of getting coins. Lucky spaces, happening spaces that give you free coins, everything being so cheap and so on. Like, I know I keep bringing up that I don't think the broken economy is as big of an issue in this game as it is in others, but that doesn't mean it's not an issue that could have been handled better. But hey, despite that, I still think the way the boards are set up still make for a very unique Mario Party experience. Having it where the focus is more on movement creates a very different approach on how you strategize, in not only trying to push yourself forward, but perhaps pushing others back, impeding their progress. And even though you can run into the problem of somebody using a golden pipe and then immediately grabbing another one because the star's so close, that's realistically probably only going to be able to be pulled off once, since there's equally just as many other spaces, if not more, that's far away from it. So it's not too big of an issue. And boards like the fruit one have a unique solution that I've mentioned before that I really like. I just wish all the boards had similar solutions. But despite its flaws, I would still say that the overall balance of these games is still pretty alright. Yeah, I kind of didn't bring up the elephant in the room. I apologize. He's very shy. Yeah, you see, this game is greatly balanced if you're just using regular dice blocks and have no allies. But the moment those come into play, the entire fucking thing just falls apart. Okay, it's time to talk about these. This is another major aspect of Super Mario Party. Every character has their own unique dice block. They can vary greatly from one another. Some have major risk versus reward factors, where you can roll really high numbers, but in turn some extremely low and even lose coins. Some focus on consistency, like Shy Guy having 5 4s on his, or Dry Bones having 3 1s or 3 6s. And some of them are just completely shit, like Monty Mole's, where the only difference is that his block is a regular block, but instead of rolling a 1, you just roll for 1 coin. Who thought that was a good idea? Who suggested this at the developers meeting, and why did everyone just go along with it? Were they running low on time? Out of ideas? Did Monty Mole just crash the party and they needed to whip up something quickly? What is this die? Why is it so bad? On paper, this is a very cool idea. Every character has a slightly different strategy to them, but unfortunately, it's so incredibly poorly balanced, it ain't even funny. Bowser's block is completely busted. He has a 50% shot of rolling an 8, 9, or 10, which is pretty reliable. Sure, you can roll a 1 or even lose some coins, but in a game where movement is this incredibly powerful, it's usually a risk worth taking. Any character die that is super consistent is also really useful. Shy Guy's die is one of the best for this, since he has 5 4s and 1 0. And hell, that 0 ain't even all that bad. It just means that you can just try again to roll for a 4, since you didn't move. So Shy Guy is very useful at getting spaces you want early on, especially the ally space, which is the other very busted mechanic in this game. When you get an ally, not only do you get access to the die, which potentially can give you more options, but they also roll their own dice block between a 1 and a 2. And you can get up to max of 4 of these guys, which means if you're lucky enough, you can roll a 10 on a Bowser die, and then all your allies roll a combined total of 8. And if you're using a golden dash mushroom, that adds 5, meaning you can get a roll that allows you to move 23 spaces in a game where the highest on a normal dice block is fucking 6. And these are just regular mechanics. It's not like a triple dice where when you use the item, you have to go and try to buy another one. You can do this every turn. Now you may be thinking, oh, come on now, what are the chances of that happening like every turn? Quite high. I don't have a recording of it, but I was playing this game with a friend a few months back, and we were on Kamek's board. It was near the end of the game, and I had 3 allies. One so happened to be Bowser. I was at the very beginning of the map, so I decided to use the Bowser's block for this, and I managed to roll a 10, where all but one of my allies rolled a 2, meaning I was able to travel the entire map, make it to the star, and buy a couple of them in a single turn. And then I did it 2 more times, all while my friend is just sitting there watching me as I lapped them 3 times in a row. They decided to make a game that had more of a focus on trying to move across the map efficiently, and then they added mechanics that completely break that in half. Even without the Bowser dice block and just using a regular one, if you manage to get more than 1 ally, you already have a massive advantage over everyone else, since you'll always be having a 2 to 4 added to your rolls. You'll never get a poor roll again. You'll always be moving somewhere, be able to do something. It's super unbalanced. Remember that whole thing I went on about how golden pipes are actually pretty balanced since they're hard to get to? Well, that's completely untrue when you take all this into account. I think it's very unfortunate because I don't think the design of this game is that bad. It's quite a unique approach to the Mario Party formula that still keeps true to what people like about the classic games. But the addition of these 2 mechanics completely fly in the face of that. It's not even like getting the allies as like a skill thing or something you can purchase. It's entirely if you land on a space or maybe get lucky with an item space so you can get the ally phone. So you can't even control how much someone's going to be in the lead. It's just not fun to play a game when you know someone you're against has a significant advantage over you over stuff that's outside of your control, especially if you start to fall behind because you just can't get your hands on allies. Honestly, if you ever think about playing this game, the best amount of turns to play is 10. Since it's so short, no one really has time to hog up on golden pipes or get a broken amount of allies. By the time the player seems like they're starting to get an advantage, the game's already over. I feel like a really simple fix for this would be to limit it down so you can only have 1 ally at a time. If you land on another ally space, you get the choice of swapping them out. I also think players should have an option to be able to steal allies from one another, aside from just this one rare item, which is only available in partner mode. Imagine if Lakitu had an option to steal allies. That could work. You know, it's funny because as I'm typing this out, I'm realizing that they already did that with Jamboree, and they went even further with it. They only stay for 3 turns, and you could steal them by simply passing by someone, so I guess they really heard the complaints and took them to heart, at least to some extent. I was going to go into each map in detail, but there's really not much differentiating them. They're all pretty similar and suffer the same issues. I will say, I think the Fruit Island one suffers the least, due to the way that the islands are split. To traverse from one to the other, you have to land on a happening space, meaning high rolls and allies matter ever so slightly less. Not only that, but the shop could be taken out permanently after enough use to prevent golden pipe spam. So this map is certainly the most enjoyable for me since it suffers the least from the issues the game has. On a completely unrelated note, does anyone else think that the music that plays after you beat a minigame have a part in it that sounds like Gon Gon from Super Monkey Ball? Okay, so that was the main mode, and as you probably noticed, I only mentioned 4 boards. That's all there is to this game. It's the least amount of boards the Mario Party franchise has ever had. What do you mean the top 100 only has 1 board? That low amount is most likely due to how you have an entirely different party mode that heavily changes the layout of these boards. So if you really wanted to, you could try to argue that the game actually has 8 boards. You wouldn't be right, but you could argue it. This mode is called Partner Mode, and it's set up very differently. Here you're on teams, a 2v2. Your coins are shared, same with stars. When you roll, your dice blocks are combined, and you can freely move across the grid. Any items you have can be used between the 2 of you. Although if someone uses it, the effects are exclusively applied to them. Like if you use the dash mushroom, only the person who actually used it will reap its benefits. So you had to strategize with your partner of who should use the item and when. The same applies to allies. When someone passes an ally, only they get the benefits of having them. The big thing about this mode is the fact that everything's set out in a grid. No direct path to follow. As long as there's not a wall in your way, you're pretty freely able to move anywhere you want. It's kind of interesting because despite the incredibly different way of moving, at the end it's still just standard Mario Party. You know, get to the star, and when you do, the star moves, and keep chasing it down until the game ends. Without the more stricter layout, it seems like the game would actually become rather simple. You'd think that the two teams would just go in a linear path to the star and claim it first. It doesn't seem like there's much reason to split up. With the exception of one map, you don't really have things like a Lakitu to try to steal coins or star. Well, I think the developers did something pretty clever and interesting that utilizes the more free roam movements of this mode that kind of address that problem. They all kind of follow the same basic idea. There's a special item on the map that you have to go and pick up, and then you gotta bring that item to this other location to get the free star. On Whomp's Fortress, you gotta get this key to this chest. On King Bomb's map, you gotta get these two pickaxes on the right and bring them to these two rocks on the left. On the Tropical Fruit map, you gotta bring this little fruit cutting device, I don't know what this is, and then bring it over to the other island so you can make a staircase so you can get this free star. And then finally on Chemic's map, you got this other key that you bring to this gate, which gives you access to the Lakitu. It's great because it really feels like you're working together trying to accomplish this objective. Like for example, you can have one person over on the other side of the map get the key, and if someone's already over by where the objective is, they can just immediately go ahead and land on it and use the item since items are shared. It really is a good reason to split up and not just follow each other throughout the entire map. I really do like this mode quite a lot. There's just one itty bitty tiny minute problem. You need to land directly on the star to collect it. That's it? That doesn't really seem like a Oh my goodness! If you're one space away from the star, you absolutely need to roll an odd number to actually land on it. You'll find yourself in a situation where multiple times in a row, you just can't get the star because you keep losing the 50-50. All while the opponents come from the other side of the map and swipe it from under your little disgusting nose. It's not even guaranteed if you use the golden pipe. It's still a 50-50. What in the ever-living fuck? Who thought that was a good idea? Was it you, Mr. Makoto Iguchi? I have to imagine the reason why they did this was because they were afraid it might be too broken if you could just pass the star to collect it. You see, there's a mechanic in the game where if both players land on the star space, they can both buy a star, which can go up to 4 stars in the final 3 turns since you can buy 2 stars at a time during that. It would basically mean that there would be no reason to separate since you get way more stars just by sticking together all the time. The solution there is just make it where both players can't purchase a star in a single turn. Once the first player buys the star, just have the star move immediately after that. Perhaps they thought that would make it where you get the opposite issue. If you could buy the star just by passing over it, and the both of you couldn't buy multiple stars, then there'd be virtually no reason for you two to stick together. Like, it's supposed to be a tough decision. Do you stick together and try to get more stars in a single turn, or do you split apart and try to accomplish your own tasks? But I don't think that should have been a problem to begin with. Just design it from the get-go that splitting up is encouraged, because all we're left with in this scenario is this awful compromise that just makes it frustrating. It's not fun to be in front of the stars for 3 turns in a row and then have it sniped from you because you were unlucky. I know that it's Mario Party. Bad luck and losing out on things you felt like should have been yours is part of the experience. But those usually involve crazy plays like rolling a very high roll on a triple dice, or taking a gamble with a swap block and it working out. This isn't nearly as interesting or exciting when it happens, it's just kind of lame. There's a difference between screaming when someone takes a star from you versus just rolling your eyes. And honestly, I feel like that kind of best describes this game overall. Not really that interesting or exciting. Despite the unique elements it introduced, it just doesn't really execute them very well, leading to this game just kind of being underwhelming. I know there's other side modes, but like, I don't really have anything to say about the rhythm game or river survival aside from the fact that it's just Shadow the Hedgehog. See, you have to get through all the endings to get 100%. He's an inspiration to us all. This was really fun to go back and re-experience, but honestly, out of the 3 Mario Party games on Switch, 6 if you count the NSO expansion pass, like hell, I'm paying $50. It's definitely the one that I'd probably go back to the least. I just think the other games are way more enjoyable. Kind of a sour note to end this video on, but what are you gonna do? No, seriously, what are you gonna do? You're gonna fight me? I'll fucking kill you.